Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. It's great to be with you today. Super excited to bring some great information to you. We're going to talk about a possible trade. I've been talking to you a lot about the Raiders and a potential trade. That's been a lot of talk around the NFL. I'm going to bring you a name today and a little bit of an update. I'm also going to bring you an update on Maxx Crosby, excuse me, and we're going to have talk about a couple potential quarterbacks in the NFL draft. So without any more ado, let's get going. I want to remind you, if you have a question that you would like to have answered on the podcast, we certainly cannot even come close to doing all of them. But a lot of times we'll take, if we get several of the same um, topic, we'll take one of those. Sometimes it may only be one, but it's unique. So we'll run with that. But if you would like to have yours potentially be to be answered on the podcast, just email me at Spartan Nation Mail, MAIL at yahoo.com. Put in the subject line Raiders Q&A and we'll see what happens. Must include your name and at least your name and your last initial, not like Raider Fisherman or anything like that. Got to have your actual name. Well, you don't have to put your last name if you don't want to. You just put your last initial and only one email per week. If you send me more than one email per week, it goes right into spam and then you're lost forever. So let's get right at it. The first one comes to us from John D. It says, Uncle Hondo, you've mentioned a few times about the reports of people around the league talking about the Raiders trading. You made it clear that it wouldn't be a Burrow or an Allen or Mahomes, but who do you think? This is from John D. Well, John, let me throw this out there to you. I've purposely not given names. And I've said this in a previous podcast. I didn't give names because I had not heard it from enough people who I thought would have knowledge of it. But let me tell you something that I have learned since in the last 24 hours is prior to his last two games of the year, Sam Darnold was absolutely crushing it and playing extremely well. And you may remember at the owners' meetings, I was the first to report it's going to probably cost about $40 million to get him. And I talked about him being a potential for the Raiders. I am hearing from people who would absolutely know that Sam would absolutely be desirous before going to another team to stay in Minnesota and that he'd be willing to take a good deal for the Vikings. If that were to happen and the Vikings were to re-sign him, that would open the door for a potential trade for JJ McCarthy. And I believe in talking to people around the league that if JJ McCarthy were available, the Raiders would absolutely have interest. Now, that's coming from people around the league. I am in no way implying I got that from somebody within the Raider organization, but multiple people around the league, even going back to the Super Bowl, told me they thought the Raiders would have interest in JJ McCarthy. But the general consensus was if they let Sam go, they're not going to let McCarthy go. So, with Sam Darnold willing to take less money, or at least be willing to take a deal favorable to Minnesota, that if that opened the door, then I could absolutely see the Raiders making a trade for JJ McCarthy. Very good quarterback who, prior to an injury last year, demonstrated a lot of good skills, was going to be the starter in Minnesota. A lot of people thought he would at least going into the season. So interesting stuff there with JJ McCarthy. The next comes from Dana B. Hondo, any updates on Maxx Crosby? I know you have talked about it, but any updates? Yes, I've told you guys all along that I believe that Maxx, not all along, but as of late, that Maxx absolutely believes in what the Raiders are doing and would like to be a part. However, I now have been told by somebody inside the organization that in their financial planning, the Raiders are planning on Maxx returning, which means he's going to get a massive deal. Now, could something happen? Could Maxx decide I don't want that. Yeah, he could, but I'm not expecting that in the least bit. I believe that he is absolutely on board with what's going on. I think I know ideally he would love to stay here, and that's what he would like. And I'm being told that the mindset within the building is, as they're financially laying out what they're going to do or what their thinking is with their plan now that they've just gotten a better look at the salary cap numbers, that they are that they're planning inside the organization. Their thought process inside the organization is Max returning. So that should make you feel good. Again, you never say 100% in the NFL, let alone with the Raiders, but I think all signs internally, that's their thinking. I know that Max would like to return, and I have zero concerns that a deal will get done. So there you go. That's another bit of breaking kind of news from inside on the Raiders and the mindset. Next, this comes from Matt V. Hey, Hondo, I've listened to 95% of your podcasts on YouTube. I don't remember you commenting on Tyler Shough, Shough. I've heard some people call it Shough, however you want to call it. What are you hearing from NFL insiders on Tyler? Ashton Genty would be a great pick at 6. He would help any QB who starts for the Raiders. Come up to Oregon for some spring salmon fishing. Matt, I love the picture you sent me. I do not like to eat salmon because where I'm from in Michigan, it is such a staple in the diet that I ate my share of salmon growing up, and I love to eat fish. I eat it all the time. But salmon, my wife and I both come from good Midwestern families. We ate a lot of salmon. I'm salmoned out. I would not eat it, but I love to catch salmon. It's fun. Don't tempt me unless you mean it, because I may take you up on that. I love salmon fishing. The Great Lakes in Michigan, salmon fishing in Alaska is fantastic. I bet it's great in Oregon. So yeah, let's talk about Tyler for a minute. Um, I have heard a lot from scouts about not that's not true. I have heard significant from scouts, not a lot. And here's kind of what I got. Injuries have brought a lack of experience, that he really struggles with pressure and blitzes and identifying them pre-snap. Consequently, he's slow to read the pressures and getting rid of the ball quick are all areas that he struggles, which in the NFL is a death sentence. He's got good feet. He can move in the pocket, has a strong arm. But here's the thing. Listen to this quote from a scout. A 26-year-old player that needs development is not a great proposition. His age is what is the big killer there. Just because he's 26 and you got a guy that needs a lot of work and development. So there you go. Could he go sit on a bench for a couple of years? Yep. But then all of a sudden now you're looking at a 28-year-old guy. So that's the big concern. Um, this one comes from Tony H. Hondo, heard you say in your mock draft scenario that the Raiders are looking to get Ashton Genty, who I think would be a great pick. However, would this mean that the Raiders have lost confidence in Zeus, Tony H? Now, let me say a couple of things. I've made this clear. When Antonio Pierce took over for the rest of 2023, Zamir White was the best running back in the National Football League. Last year, obviously there was injury, but he struggled like everybody did under the leadership of Luke Getsy, who tried to do things that aren't made for Zamir's game. It's where I've talked to you before. Is one of the things that I love most about Chip Kelly is his opening press conference. What does he say? My job is to put my guys in the best position to win and mask what they don't do. That's what good coaches do. Bad coaches say, this is what I do, and we're going to do it. How'd that work out for Luke Getsy? Anyways, moving on. I don't think there's anybody that's given up on him or sincere for that matter. But you need 3 running backs, and you got a chance to go get Genty, who is a force. Gentry is an elite run. There are a bunch of good running backs in this draft, but there are two who are elite, and even between them, there's separation. Gentry is the best, period. Omarion Hampton is still an elite running back. Different style, but he is an elite running back. Then there's a bunch of other really good ones, but those are the two elite ones. I would have zero problem with the Raiders getting either one, but Gentry is the best. And when you have a chance to go get him, and remember, go look at every time Pete Carroll's had success. Everyone talks about quarterback play, and he has had it. I'm not denying that, but he's also had terrific running backs. Very, very important that you remember that. And to add it, to have a Gentry to go with Zeus, to go with Sincere McCormick, man, that'd be a really, really good running back room. So, but yeah, there you go. And again, just keep your eye on Gentry. And remember, if you could trade down from between 6 and 12, I don't think there's a whole lot of people in there that need running backs. Remember now, because Gentry's so good, though, they could trade up. So if you're the Raiders, I think you clearly trade down. Matter of fact, in my mock draft, I had them trading down to 12 with Dallas, and bam, that allows the Raiders to get them lower and for less money. But I have zero problem with the Raiders he's a great pick. He's a great pick. I'll get more into him in a minute. Next one comes to us from Manuel S. in Modesto, California. Dear Hondo, with the NFL draft approaching in the coming months, it seems like there has been several rookie quarterbacks that have been dominating mainstream headlines. For example, Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, and Will Howard. My question for you is, why isn't there more talk about Riley Leonard? What have you heard about him? And do you think he would be a viable choice for the Raiders after the first round? Okay. Manuel, a few things. Number one, this is a day 3 pick at best. A lot of teams I talk to think he's a UDFA, undrafted free agent. They think he is an absolute clear backup, a quality backup, but he's a number 3 in this league. He just lacks passing ability. He is way inconsistent with his accuracy. He's inconsistent. Literally, I mean, I watched some film for when I got your question that a couple people told me to go watch, and I did. Just where he'll make a perfect pass and come right back the next one, and it's not even close. And if it's close windows, he really struggles. And the other thing is his vision. He struggles with his vision. His vision is not good. So no, I after the first round, not a chance. I mean, maybe a day 3 guy. I could see him as a UDFA and have zero issues with that. You get him in the 7th round, you get him as a UDFA, great. But before that, no, that would just not be good in my opinion. And I think a lot of people who I trust that draft well would agree with that. Oh, Dexter's here. I think he wants to say hi. You want to say hi to everybody? Say hello, everybody. All right, say wave bye-bye. All right, go play now. All right, let's keep going. Good evening, Mr. Carpenter. My question is about the D line. As the Raiders have shown against the Chiefs, the Eagles stole it. A strong D line with a great rotation is key to dominating Mahomes. Would it make sense, and could we afford to sign Khalil Mack and Coots this offseason? I think Mack would be an awesome third down option on either side. Could you imagine having to face Mack and Crosby on 3rd and 11? Have a great day. That is on 3rd and 11. Have a great day. That's some Gerald T. Listen, I could see a scenario in which Khalil Mack comes back as a role player for role player money. But most guys who've been great, that's not a great scenario that they like. They're not interested in being a role player. They're not interested in role player money. But yes, if the money could be right, I could see that. But there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts. But yeah, I could see it for sure. And I think he's open to coming back. But again, I think you have to be very clear with him. It's going to be in a role and with role player money. The next one comes to us from Marty H. Hondo, any crazy draft scenarios out there you have heard about? I remember you breaking a story about the Raiders mock drafting when Ziegler was here. And last year, you talked about they did not have one mock scenario that had Brock Bowers falling to 13. Is there anything you're hearing this year? Thanks. And again, that's from Marty H. Yes, there is one that I am hearing. And I am not predicting this to happen, but I do believe there is a possibility of it. If 3 quarterbacks are taken in the top 5 picks, I want you to think about this one. If 3 quarterbacks are taken in the first 5 picks, and then you assume a Travis Hunter goes. So that would put the Raiders 1 pick away from potentially the best player in the draft, Abdul Carter. Now, let me just ask you this question. If you're a Raider, you look at what happened with Brock Bowers last year, and you got a chance to get the number 1 dude in the draft at 6 to pair with a Maxx Crosby. I don't even care if you sign Malcolm Koonce and a Caleb on Chase on. You need players. You need defensive linemen. If you're the Raiders, how do you let an Abdul Carter go by you? I don't think you can. I just don't think you can. I mean, he is a dude. Best player in this draft. You got a chance to add a guy that people are saying is Micah Parsons. And in some places, even probably not all, but even some a better skill set than Micah. Compare him with Maxx? Come on now. Shoot this thing. I mean, that just is that's a scenario now. That's a big scenario. All right, now let's go back a little bit. 3 quarterbacks go, and Abdul and Travis Hunter. Now all of a sudden, you got the corner out of Michigan coming off of injury, but if you're convinced that he is healthy, that's an immediate wham you got there. You can go at a Mason Graham at D tackle. I mean, he's one of the best D tackle prospects to come out in a long time. You've got your pick on offensive linemen, great receivers. I wouldn't take a receiver there, but I'm just saying these are options that you have. And then you still got Genty, that's just a great pick. Or, and this is what I advocate, you trade down. You trade down because somebody going to overpay. You pick up a couple of firsts, a first in this draft, a first in next year's draft, and depending on how far you go, you pick up a second. What about another second and another third? Could you imagine the Raiders with 3 3s, 2 2s, and 1 1? I'm telling you, Raiders are in a good spot. And I keep hammering with you about trade because I'm hearing a lot of talk around the NFL about trade. And the more that you think about a scenario with, if you're a Raider fan and you are not convinced in any of these quarterbacks, you're praying that 3 of them are gone. because it just makes your pick more valuable and allows you to trade back and stockpile talent. Interesting scenarios here. Some really, really good in a very deep draft. It is not a deep quarterback draft, but it is a very deep draft. So when you start looking at, man, 2 2s and 3 3s and 1 1, I mean, you could trade back and get an Omarion Hampton, who is an elite running back, elite, or trade back and get an elite offensive lineman or another elite player. There's going to be some great safeties out there, some great corners, D tackles deep into the draft. I'm just telling you, there is a lot of options here on the table. So, yeah, am I hearing some crazy scenarios? I am. I can't, as you know, and I've hammered this for years, bad drafting is so bad in the NFL right now. It is a wonder how, when there's only 32 jobs, how many teams can just continue to poorly draft. And because they do, the smart teams keep eating. Meaning, why do you always see teams? Look at the Steelers. They just let the draft come to them. And they're consistently in the playoffs, which I know you want to win Super Bowls. I'm not saying you don't. But you allow yourself to keep letting the draft come to you. Let bad teams pick and let good players drop. The Raiders masterfully played it last year. I have no reason to think John Spytek won't play it this year. I've had a front row seat to his career, and he is smart. He is super, super smart. But yes, that's a scenario that I've heard, and I think it's a fascinating one. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. Have a great time, great weekend. Looking forward to the combine next week. We'll see you tomorrow.